Welcome back, True Seeker. Little fear-mongering piece on CNN tonight. Babies are bleeding to death as parents reject a vitamin shot given at birth. And for the record, you're listening to the voice of a parent who rejected this very same shot for good reason. If your baby has a traumatic birth, you should probably get this shot. If your baby doesn't have a traumatic birth, let me just read. They entered the world the way the baby should, with piercing cries announcing their arrival. They passed their newborn screening tests. Some made it to their 2-week wellness visits without concern. Then, without warning, their systems began to shut down. A 7-week-old boy in Maryland developed sudden seizures. I find it funny that they start with Maryland because today is the 128th day of the year, and of course in Gematria, Maryland equals 128. And we'll get to how 128 in numerology breaks down to 1 plus 2 plus 8 is 11. And this is about vitamin K, the 11th letter. And typically a newborn baby takes 11 days until they can produce vitamin K at sustainable levels to stop bleeding in their system. Most children aren't bleeding in their first 11 days of life unless they have a traumatic birth, as long as the parents aren't tossing them around like a football and just treating them like you would normally treat a baby, very gently. A 7-week-old boy in Maryland developed sudden seizures. Remember, we talked about how tonight is at the Maryland baseball game, the Orioles hosting the Athletics. It's Tupac bobblehead night, and today is also 128 days before Tupac's death anniversary, September 13th, which is the 96th composite, like he died in 96. Maryland equals 128, Orioles equals 96. I'm just making the point because how they had to start with Maryland on this fear piece written today. A 7-week-old boy in Maryland developed sudden seizures. An 11-pound girl, oh, there you go, K, the 11th letter, 7-11. Let's get a Slurpee. An 11-pound girl in Alabama stopped breathing for 20 seconds at a time. A baby boy in Kentucky, starting with K for vitamin K, vomited before becoming lethargic. A brown-haired girl in Texas, not yet 2 weeks old, bled around her belly button. Desperate to save them, records show doctors inserted tubes into their airways and hooked them up to IVs. They ordered blood transfusions. They spent half an hour trying to resuscitate one boy until his parents told them they could stop. They shaved another boy's soft locks to embed a needle directly into his skull to reduce the pressure in his brain. None of it was enough. At the morgue, the babies were brought in with their diapers and blankets and with their hospital ID bracelets still wrapped around their tiny ankles. The pathologist's findings were likely those you would typically see in ailing adults, not newborns. The kind of bleeding seen during strokes or brain tissue loss, similar to what happens when radiation is administered to treat cancer. Now, that's another thing that was recommended by the medical industry. It's like they want you to get this shot. Their autopsies, which took place over the last several years, all came to the same conclusion. The deaths were caused in whole or in part by a rare but potentially fatal condition known as vitamin K deficiency bleeding. In almost every case, the baby's death could have been prevented with a long standard vitamin K shot. But across the country, families, first in smatterings, now in droves, are declining the single, inexpensive injection given at birth to newborns to help their blood clot. Many of them are doing so out of a well-meaning but ill-informed abundance of caution, in the hopes of safeguarding their newborns from what they see as unnecessary medical intervention. They have shunned fundamental and scientifically sound pharmaceutical intervention. The trend is also fueled by a contradictory pairing, families' fierce desire to protect their babies, and a cascade of false information infused into their social media algorithms. This is where people need to wake up. What is always putting out false information is the mainstream media. Almost everything is false because it's all corporately controlled, and dollars and cents come above truth. Truths can have a big impact on dollars and cents. Again, all of these news networks are sponsored by corporations. I remember when Anderson Cooper went to break during Cooties 19, right after the Pokey-Dokes came out. And Anderson Cooper, who gets plugged in his butthole, he said, "You're not a real man. if you don't go out and get that cootie shot right now. And then it cut to commercial. It said, this segment sponsored by Pfizer. And I thought, Jesus. Let's continue. Although it is not a vaccine, the vitamin K shot has been swept up in the same post-pandemic tide that has led to a drop in key childhood vaccines, including for measles and whooping cough. The vitamin K shot is one of the three main interventions, along with the hepatitis B vaccine and an antibiotic ointment in the eyes, that newborns typically receive before leaving the hospital. Leading American institutions and the World Health Organization recommend that newborns get the shot. In December, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention stopped recommending that all newborns get the hepatitis B vaccine, which has been highly effective at fighting a virus that can lead to lifelong infections and liver cancer. A federal judge in March temporarily blocked the revised childhood vaccination schedule that included the recommendation. Some families are also rejecting the eye ointment. 2 weeks ago at a House subcommittee hearing, Rep. Kim Schreier, Democrat of Washington, pressed Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to reassure parents that the vitamin K shot is safe. He refused and pushed back. I've never said anything about it, Kennedy said. That's exactly the point, responded Schreier, who is a doctor. You don't say anything about it, but the doubt you've created about all of medicine and science is causing parents to make dangerous decisions. Shouldn't there be a lot of doubt, you guys? I mean, how many years have we just contributed tons of money, tax money, donation money to fighting disease and illness, and all we see happening as time goes on is more and more people get these diseases and illnesses and cancers at younger and younger ages, not to mention you can't even take a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a school anymore, and somehow nobody has an answer for what's going on, but what they do know is it's definitely not those pokey dokes. The pokey dokes are super safe. And like it just says, vitamin K is not a vax. Yeah, but it's full of mercury. It is full of mercury. Like all of them, they're all full of preservatives. And then people are like, well, that mercury, though, is safe. Okay, yeah, it doesn't turn people into Mad Hatters. It doesn't cause head problems. You're positive. We don't know the answer, but we know it doesn't. Again, just stop. Stop. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the first guy to go into that position and talk about how we need to do something about what's happening to the children in this nation because we got an obesity crisis, we have a disease and illness crisis. Yeah. Anyway, he said we need to stop subsidizing sugar. I mean, yeah. He's the bad guy, please. An HHS spokesperson did not respond to questions, but in an email blamed the administration of former President Joe Biden for the rise in parents rejecting vitamin K shots. Vitamin K at birth, the spokesperson added, remains the standard of care. Meanwhile, families continue to be inundated with advice from self-proclaimed experts using medical terms incorrectly and misunderstanding science to convince parents that getting the shot could put their newborns at risk of grave harm. Nearly a century's worth of research and medical advancement shows the opposite to be true. We rejected everything when our child was born, and we had 4 different doctors come in and try to persuade us otherwise. Keep in mind, my wife is technically a doctor. She is even a pharmacist. But we rejected everything. And, anybody who's aware of our daughter, she is an incredibly healthy, beautiful baby. No ear, look how many children commonly have earaches. It's pretty common. And our child hasn't had a single earache. Our child hasn't had a blemish on her face. A lot of kids' faces are just all full of blemishes, and they get sick all the time. My daughter, she's a year and a half old. She wouldn't have been sick a single time, but I got the flu. I got the flu at the start of this year, and I spread it to everybody. My daughter she got a little bit sick, and she was fine 2 days later. She got better before I got better, and she caught it about a week after I got it. I tried to isolate, but I finally got everybody sick. And like I said, there was 2 other children around the same age as my daughter. They got shots when they were born. I know that same winter, the first winter they were all born, both of those children got COVID. Both of them had to go to the hospital for COVID. And they had gotten shots. My daughter didn't have any shots. She didn't get anything. And those doctors tried to scare the shit out of us about every single thing going around. This is going around, that's going around, this... Breast milk, love, care, attention, having your child sleep in your bed. I think that's a big one. And, that's another thing these doctors, they don't know about a lot about much. The first doctor we had, he was talking about how, let your baby cry. He's like, it doesn't matter if your baby cries. Let your baby cry. Yeah, put them in a crib, put them in a separate room, have them just cry themselves to sleep. That was his advice. And we never did that. That didn't seem right. Our baby sleeps in the bed with us, which, yeah, there's downside to that too. But our baby is just so happy and so healthy. And we skipped all this. Now, granted, if you injured your baby and it was bleeding in the opening days, you'd have wished you got that vitamin K shot. I get that. But as long as you think you're responsible enough to keep your baby from suffering a major wound, you're not, undressing her with sharp scissors or keeping her up next to the cutting board while you're chopping up the vegetables and not passing her around the house like a football, I'm saying her because I have a daughter, but him or her, as long as you're teaching it like a little delicate baby, which they are, you're not dropping it, you're probably going to be okay. Mother Nature, it really does provide. And once upon a time, there wasn't all these Pokey-Dokes on the shelf full of preservatives that they keep telling us are so safe to inject into our children, as more and more have more and more problems, autism and beyond. And yeah, I'm not saying that it does cause autism, but I'm saying they don't know what causes it. And the only thing that's really changed in the time that everybody has autism is the schedule and all these recommended Pokey-Dokes, So yeah, for any parent out there reading that who's afraid, because look how scary they try to make it. The morgue, their little toe with a death certificate around it, bleeding, gushing, like a horrible, horrible wound. But yeah, after about 11 days, the typical baby, healthy baby, produces what's necessary to stop bleeding. And for, these rare cases they're bringing up, think about how many children are born, right? In this little town I live in, which, these Hispanic people, they really know how to breed. There's only 4,000 people in this town, but these Hispanics, they kick it out. There's probably at least 40 new babies born a day in this town of 4,000 people, which is probably growing for that reason. This is one little town in America. There's a lot of babies being born. And yeah, ones that have rare things where their body doesn't produce K after 11 days, which is probably one in a million, Yeah, so anyway, just the way they phrase things. It's not a vax, but yeah, it has the same stuff in it though. The preservatives, the mercury and whatnot. All that stuff that has to sit on the shelf as a shelf life because of the preservatives. And the question is, what does that do when it goes into your body? It's the same reason you don't really want to eat processed food, because it's all full of crap so that it can sit on the shelf. They don't do that because that's the optimal way to eat. They do that because it's profitable. These companies make a lot of money selling you that shit on the shelf full of preservatives. A potato doesn't sell for that much. Turn it into a potato chip with a whole bunch of crazy flavoring, scientifically engineered additives to make you addicted, to make you chow down the whole bag with a whole bunch of preservatives on it. That wasn't made for your health. That was made to make a buck off you. And a lot of bucks are made off of all of these, pharmaceuticals. And a lot of them probably just aren't all that necessary. So yeah, I just wanted to respond to this article as a parent who went through the fear-mongering of 4 doctors. And I still remember the 4th doctor they brought in. He was the definition of a douche. He picked up our daughter and he started doing arm curls with her. He's like, wow, I can do real arm curls with this one, because she was almost 10 pounds. She's a pretty heavy baby. He's like, wow, this is a workout. I was like, look at this guy. Are you really arm curling my daughter right now as you're telling me we need to give her the injections? God, what a douche. Then he got into how I still remember this guy. He did the you could tell he did the fake tan. He was all orange, and he's like, "Pretty soon I'm moving down to Brazil. I got a new girlfriend." It's like, great, douchebag. How about stop arm curling my daughter? Jesus. Anyway, we'll leave it there for now, you guys, and until next time.